Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Story Behind the Resume. My name is Abu Saim, your host and the creator of this series. I'm so glad you could join us today. I've spent over 12 years in digital consumers marketing, e-commerce, and technology project management in the consumer packaged goods and quick service restaurant industries. I've had the privilege of working so many different leaders and have always been fascinated by how their stories, the challenges they have faced, and the decisions they have made along the way have shaped their success. Story behind the resume was inspired by my own career journey, one that's been full of unexpected turns and moments of uncertainty. As I moved forward in my career, I began to realize how often we only see the polished surface of someone's resume, the final results. But what about the real stories behind those results? What about the challenges, the failures, the unexpected paths that made them who they are today? Those untold moments, the ones that don't fit neatly into a bullet points, are what truly define a person's success. I wanted to create a platform where we could explore those stories. So, Story Behind a Resume was born. A career isn't just a series of accomplishments, it's a journey full of experiences, resilience, and growth. My hope is that these stories will inspire you, encourage you, and remind you that your path is unique and worth exploring. In each episode of Story Behind a Resume, we go beyond job titles and bullet points to explore the real journeys accomplished by the professionals. We uncover the defining moments, the tough lessons, the guiding principles, and that have shaped their paths. My goal is to offer you practical insights, inspiration, and maybe even a few light bulb moments to help you as you navigate your own career. So, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Today, we have a very special guest, Ingrid Deon. She's the founder of and CEO of WordCraft, a social media marketing agency with a mission to prove that world-class marketing talent can thrive in rural Nova Scotia. What a bold idea. Right. Let's kick things off by exploring our guest's journey. Starting from the very beginning, we'll hear about their educational background, what they studied, and what sparked their interest in that field. Then we'll move on to their first steps into the professional world, their very first job, and what motivated them to choose that particular role or industry. And finally, we'll hear about some of their key lessons and challenges they faced early in their career. Those all important experiences that help shape their career direction. So let's welcome our guest. Hi, Ingrid. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for being in
I'm
the show. I'm so glad.
I'm excited to be here.
Of course, of course. Um, would you please let us know or tell the audience a bit about your educational background? Um, yeah, please.
Yeah, for sure. So I went to school to study journalism when I was a teenager. I knew that I liked writing,
Yeah.
but I didn't know that marketing was a job. So
Oh,
I just thought since I like writing, I should go into journalism. So that's
I
what I
see.
studied in university. And I then worked about 5 years in journalism, um, mostly in print and radio.
Oh, wow. So how did you end up in print and radio from reporting? Like, is that linked or how is it related?
Yeah, so I started working in newspapers, writing as a staff writer
I
or a
see.
reporter, and then I ended up getting a job with CBC and Radio Canada and worked there as an associate producer and worked on a morning show, writing scripts and lining up interviews with the guests. And yeah, and then I went back to working for a newspaper for a little while. But when I moved back home to rural Nova Scotia, there were pretty much no jobs in journalism here. So I
Right.
really had to start becoming a little bit creative and try some other stuff. So that's kind of where I always thought that I would just kind of work in journalism forever, work as a reporter
I
forever. But
see. I
I
see.
that's not always the way that it works out.
Yeah, yeah. And if I'm guessing right, was that your first job?
Yeah, so yeah, my first job was at a newspaper actually here in Yarmouth, just a community newspaper. I did that
Wow,
actually while I was still in university. So I took a year off after my third year and
see,
worked here for a year and then went back to university to finish off.
amazing, amazing. That what an inspiring story. One thing deflects you, and you go into something else, and you find yourself again.
Yeah.
So, wh- if you look back now, what would be your key lessons that you can share, maybe for our viewers and listeners?
Um, I think I wish I had been prepared for the fact that the journey wouldn't be linear. So I just thought, oh, I'm going to study journalism. I'm going to work as a
Right.
reporter
Yeah.
forever, and that's going to be my career. I was not prepared for bumps in the road,
Hmm.
and when I moved back home here to rural Nova Scotia, and there were no jobs in journalism, um, I, I I just had to be scrappy and figure out some other jobs. So I worked a bunch of odd jobs. I managed a farmer's market. I worked in an art gallery. I worked in politics for a while
No
and
way.
worked at a
Politics.
history. Yeah. Yep. For about 4 years, communications and that kind of thing
Wow.
for a political caucus. And yeah, so I just didn't realize that I wouldn't necessarily just have a smooth ride and and work in my field forever.
True, true. Just that resonates with me. My first job was in a call center.
Okay.
I graduated from business, as you know, but I at that time it was 2008. Everything was frozen and nobody was hiring. So I was lucky enough to get a job at a call center where I was calling for 4 hours straight every day for 9 months. That was grilling, but I learned a lot of things. And the lesson that I learned from there is no job is it comes with nothing. I learned communications. I learned how to cold call. I can cold call anybody, even the president.
So
Cool.
true, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we have heard about your career journey, your early career journey, of course. Now let's look at how things progress. We'll hear your major milestone that shaped your career, like promotions, job changes, or maybe even moving to a whole new industry. We'll find out why you made those moves and what risks you took, how your decisions actually influenced your career path. Um, so Ingrid, what are some of your major milestones, decision skills you decided to develop?
Um, I think just being resourceful is sort of the theme of the rest of my career, and figuring things out as I went.
Right.
Um, I worked all those different odd jobs. I was just trying to find something where there weren't a whole lot of jobs in my field here.
Mhm.
So yeah, I tried a whole bunch of different things. I had my son when I was working in politics, and then when he was a little over a year old, I decided to just work part time. So that's when I managed a farmers market part time because I wanted to spend some more time
Yeah.
with him. And then I worked at a historical village just in the summers, and then I had the winters off because tourism is
Right.
a big industry here. So
Right.
yeah, I had kind of resigned myself to the fact that I would just be a mom who worked a little bit, and
Yeah.
I was not going to have that career as a journalist anymore. Not be that woman who was, dressed in a suit running around and
Right.
interviewing people. But then when my son was 3, my ex-husband left, and I really had to get creative. So
Oh,
that's when I started working 3 jobs. So
wow. That's a turning
I
point, and
it
it
was
is
a
a lot
big
of,
turning
yeah.
point.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I got a job as the assistant director of a museum here,
Mhm.
and that sounds kind of fancy, but it paid
Yeah.
$26,000 a year. It was not a big, not a
Yeah.
big money maker,
If you don't mind,
but it was,
when was that?
yeah.
Like, I know,
That was
inflation and all those things kind
that
of
was
sounds like a lot. Yes.
2014. Yeah.
2014.
So
Ah,
just
okay.
10 years ago.
10
Yeah.
years ago. Oh, that
Yeah.
still,
And
yeah, that is not sufficient, I would say. But how did you manage then?
I don't know. I got two other jobs. So I
Okay.
I worked
Must
my
have been hard.
day at the museum, but in the
Hmm.
mornings I was a freelancer for the provincial newspaper, where I called all of the police departments and the fire stations in the province and found out if anything happened overnight. And so I
Hmm.
would write the little news briefs in the paper. So I did that in the morning before work, and then I went to work at the museum. And then in the evenings and weekends, I knit, and I sold my knitting patterns online and sold my hand knits online and in craft fairs.
Talking
So
about
those were my three jobs.
multi-talented, that's three kinds of job. I don't know how you managed.
Yeah,
Knitting,
while raising a human.
wow. Oh, well, that's the fourth job, of course. I
Yeah,
mean, I have a couple of them, so I know
yeah,
I share the feelings. But that must have been
yeah.
very challenging. I know knitting requires special skills. Any skills that helped you even today that you learned at that time?
I think that's really when my work ethic really ramped up.
I
And I
see.
think it was just having to provide for another person who was completely relying on me. And that really kicked my work ethic into high gear. And I don't think I ever lost it. Like
I see.
before that,
Yeah.
I was always a hard worker, but
Yeah.
not like I am now. I'm
Mhm.
very driven and have not stopped in the last 10 years.
And I'm sure you didn't realize it until you went through that experience, right?
Yeah,
Um,
honestly, looking back, I don't know how I did it. While baking 3 loaves of bread a week so that we could have peanut butter toast,
right,
because we didn't have a whole lot of money,
right.
and maintaining a garden, and like just I don't know, I did so many different things.
No, that's pretty inspiring. Have you thought about moving to maybe another province where there are more jobs available, like especially in Toronto? Or
Yeah,
you're like, no, I'm gonna find and I'm gonna this is my route. What was it that you kept you in Nova Scotia?
that's a great question. I um, I shared custody of my son. And so while I was working those 3 jobs, my other job was to try and find a job in journalism, communications, marketing, PR, whatever, something that was closer to my field.
Right.
And so I applied for a lot of jobs in Halifax, which is a 3-hour drive away. And because I shared custody, I didn't want to move there because I thought it would be really unfair to make my son travel, 3 hours one way to visit his dad every
Right.
other weekend. I knew it was really important for him to maintain the relationship with his dad.
I see.
And I didn't want to take that away from either of them. So I tried to get a job where I could work remotely, but this
Right.
was before the pandemic, of course,
Yeah,
and so not really something that people wanted to do.
exactly.
So I got rejected a lot, and I had a lot of interviews, got rejected a lot, and then eventually an agency in Halifax hired me as a social media coordinator, and that's when I discovered marketing. And had
Mm,
I known that marketing was a job when I was in high school, I would have gone into marketing instead of journalism because I much prefer writing the quick, snappy, catchy
mhm.
lines rather than a long narrative. So
Right.
I
Right.
think writing those little news briefs, like I
Yeah.
was doing when I was working those 3 jobs, that really helped me in social media because I was so used to boiling down a story into 2 paragraphs.
Right.
And now in social media marketing, everything has to be quick, everything has to be snappy. And so I'm really good at boiling an idea down into a couple of sentences. So it really helped me. I didn't know
Yeah.
that it would, but it
That's
did.
a, that's an amazing skill. You know what? Because every time I try to apply to a job, I have to rethink what was my previous role and then bring it to a concise one or two sentence.
Yeah,
So think about it like years of experience, you have to describe in one sentence. It has to be equally impactful, meaningful, and concise. I think you have developed something that very few people can achieve. So kudos to you. I think it's
thank
a
you.
special skill, and you have learned it, through your experience and through your journey, and that is very really inspiring. And I'm really um, admiring how you achieve that. I keep on practicing. I still have to seek out, like, can you please help me? It's 20 words. I'm trying to bring them meaningful with the same sentiment within 10, 15 words.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Nowadays, there is, obviously Gen AI, which helps somewhat.
Yeah.
I have interacted with Chat GPT and sometimes used it, leveraged it to make it concise, and it is pretty helpful. But again, I have to make sure that the sentiment is there, right?
Yeah.
But at during your time when you developed it, there was no Chat GPT, there was nobody,
That's right.
right? Was there an idol or was there any mentor that you seek out for this kind of skill building?
Um, I feel I had a bunch of really influential editors,
Mm-hmm.
when I worked in journalism
Right.
and when I was freelancing, and they really, yeah, they really helped guide me. And I love nothing more than a really good editor. And I had some really great ones, and some of them were ruthless, and
Mm.
I really like that because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Um, so I worked with some really great editors that would always improve my writing, and
Yeah.
I think that helped throughout the years. Yeah,
Wow. No, that's pretty amazing. And having multiple mentors or at least someone to look up to, or s- something like, can you give me a quick feedback? Those helps. And the moment you think, yep, I think I've perfected it, and you go ask somebody, you don't want to listen. Not everybody can accept criticism, but that is what you need in order to develop your skill, and especially writing perfectly, keeping the sentiments the same, intact.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty amazing to hear. um and then I want to move to your current role, and I
yeah,
know you are the CEO of WordCraft. um and I'm just going to switch gears a little bit to hear
yeah,
that.
yeah,
We want to hear about your current role, your responsibilities. What is a typical day looks like now that you are a CEO, before you were working for another agency. So I want to get all those insights and big trends for our viewers and listeners. And also, please tell us, what do you think of the industry? Is there anything that you are trying to shape or you are learning from? Is there any disruptions? Yeah. So yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I mentioned that I started as a social media coordinator at the other agency that I worked at, and I worked my way up to
Mhm.
manager of social pretty quickly.
Right.
And that's how we met because I was managing a team
Yeah,
in Halifax and in Toronto,
I
and you
remember.
were
Yes.
working with the with the team that I was managing in Toronto.
Right.
Um, so yeah, and I fell in love with social media marketing, loved what I was doing, was quite underpaid and underappreciated. And so eventually I got the guts to start my own business. It wasn't something that I dreamed of doing. I was
Right.
quite happy working for other people. But when I saw an opportunity to make some more money and make a better life for myself and for my family, I guess I jumped into it. And so I started WordCraft in 2019. So this is just
Right
before
before
the
the
pandemic.
pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a timing, I would say.
What a time. Yeah. It was it was actually good timing
Mhm.
for me because during the pandemic, everyone was putting a lot of importance on their social media content.
Mhm.
And so we got really, really busy. And over the past 5 years, I've grown the business to have a team of 5 people. And we work with clients across Canada, some really large clients, some smaller
Right.
clients, and we do it from here in rural Nova Scotia. And one thing that's really important to me, which you mentioned in
Mhm.
the intro, is to create jobs for people in rural Nova Scotia and to show that you can do some really amazing work anywhere.
Right.
and create those opportunities that I didn't have. So I'm really proud to say that my entire team is either living in rural Nova Scotia or they're from rural Nova Scotia.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's really really important to me,
Th-
and I'm very proud of that.
I can
Um,
imagine. I
yeah,
feel good about it myself because you are now, creating jobs. You are impacting another person's life, and they're
yeah,
living. So that is something not everybody can do. Um, a- and was there like a moment when you decided, hey, I'm gonna go open my own agency, and this is my vision? Was What was it like, if you can describe a little bit, that day, that moment that you suddenly realized?
yeah. I thought that I would just be a freelancer. I didn't realize that I would end up hiring people and creating jobs. So when I started WordCraft, yeah, it was really just about, making enough money, at least the same that I was making at the agency that I used to work at, if not more, hopefully more.
Right.
Um, and but yeah, it just so that was the feeling. I just wanted to maybe have some more control,
Right.
be able to select the clients that I worked with, and just provide a job for myself. And then it wasn't long until I realized that it was getting bigger than I could handle on my own, and I
I
needed to
see.
start hiring people, um, which is a crazy thing. And I still don't think I've mastered how to know when to hire and when not to hire, and that's a whole an
Right.
art for
How did you
yeah.
get started? Like, was it one person, two person?
I
How
my
big were you at
first
that time?
Yeah, my it was in 2020. I think it was the summer of 2020. So I hadn't even been in business for a full year, and or maybe it was the fall. It might have been a year, and I hired a student. So I got a grant, that paid, I think, 50 or 75% of her wages, and hired a
Okay.
student to just help out with some community
Right.
management and scheduling posts and that kind of thing. And
It's a grant
then,
from the government, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. And you
exactly.
applied
Yeah,
for it, or you
I
just...
did. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay. I
yeah.
think provincially there is grants like that for new
Yeah, this
companies.
was a program called Venture for Canada,
Mm,
and
okay,
it's available in most provinces,
I see.
and was really great. So I was able to hire someone, and then in March of 2021, I hired my first full time employee, which was a big
Mm,
step to be
yeah.
responsible for someone's annual salary. But it was someone that I had worked with before, and so
Right.
I knew that we could work together. I was familiar with her work, and I knew that she was going to be the right person in the job. And yeah, she's still with us, and yeah.
And how big your company now? Like, how many people are working?
We have four full time and one part time.
Nice. And
Yeah.
your company kind of covers coast to coast?
Yeah, we have clients across Canada, and we particularly focus on organic social media. So
Hmm.
we create a lot of organic social media content. We write the captions, we take the photos and videos, schedule
Hmm.
posts, answer comments and messages. We
I
do
see.
some overall strategy as well, for clients, to sort of look at, what they should be posting, where they should be posting,
Right.
when, who are they talking to, all of that
I,
kind of
I
fun
have
stuff.
a quick question.
Mhm.
I've been using social media for what, 15, 16 years now, I guess. But my question is, how do you deal or manage with viral content? Like, if it's, there are positive viral content, negative viral
Yeah.
content. What's the trick behind it? If you could share for a bit. You don't have to
Yeah,
give away the secret, of course.
you never know when something's going to go viral,
Right.
honestly. Yeah, you just never know. So you just have to be prepared for it. We have worked on a lot of controversial topics, I guess.
Hmm.
Things like recalls and situations, like when I was doing a lot of community management for Nestle, there was a lot of controversy around Nestle waters,
Right.
and mitigating all of those comments. And what I've found over time is that people just want to be heard. So often you just have to acknowledge them.
Right.
If they're trolls, then don't acknowledge them. But if they're making a legitimate complaint, sometimes
Right.
you just have to acknowledge that you've heard them, and
I
that's
see.
a lot of the time that's enough. But
Mhm.
I'm a big proponent of putting the social media in social and getting in the comments and having conversations with people. I feel like that's a part of social media that we often miss.
Right.
We create a lot of ads that are broadcasts, but I love the back and forth,
The back and forth.
the communication part. Yeah.
So you are interacting as a brand, and to a person's perspective, a brand is something like a product, right? And
Hmm.
it gives a voice for the product. It gives a opportunity for the customer, the consumer, to interact with the product maker, right? And
Yeah.
that is very insightful. As at the same time, I would say an opportunity that big companies or small companies, whoever it is, uh, can take advantage of because of this advent of social media. Before that, it was all, oh, I think there's this, according to our market research, this product will do well across this segment. But now you have much more flexibility, much more opportunity to kind of find out and experiment at the same time, right? Like, will
Yeah.
it work in this demographics? Let's hear what they are able to see, and customer feedback are constant. So I think that's very special. So
Yeah.
touching on that, I wanted to ask you, because you're in this industry space, what kind of impact it is making, like your company is making, and do you see any other um, social media companies also in the industry that are pioneering in a different way? What's your take on that?
That's a good question. Um, I think so. The what we're bringing that's different is just our focus on organic social media, and I really fell in love with
Hmm.
organic social media when I was at the agency where I used to work, because
Right,
that was a lot of what I was doing. I wasn't working on a lot of ad campaigns. I was really working on um, putting that social in social media. So creating posts that ask questions that get people to comment, or creating posts that share surprising information or useful information that people want to share to increase their
hmm
organic reach.
hmm
Um, and yeah, I love that form of social media, and I love being in the comments, like I mentioned.
right,
And so we're bringing a different kind of social media that most agencies don't do. A lot of them just go from paid campaign to paid campaign,
hmm
and we are in it for the long haul, creating a lot of unique content. So it's pretty labor intensive, but the goal is really to create that engaged community of loyal
right,
fans for their brand,
right,
and keep them engaged so that they keep buying from them rather than going out and finding new customers, which is what your paid ads will do.
right. And have you ever thought about leveraging, say, a user generated content into your ads? Is that
Yeah, we really lean into user generated content. I think it's an amazing thing because it's content that you didn't have to create and
right?
other people are creating it for you. So we have one of our team members is really dedicated to reposting user generated content for all of our
Nice.
clients, and she also does a lot of the or all of the influencer outreach. So she's engaging with influencers
Right.
to try and get them to engage back to create
Hmm.
some organic user generated content.
I see.
And I think
So
that's really
your
important because
agency,
again, it creates that community.
right, right. So my question was, your agency also interacts with influencers. Do they become affiliates, or you um try to collaborate with them? How do you go about
It's
that?
more of an we do it more organically. So
Yeah.
we'll pick out a bunch of influencers that the brand potentially could work with, and we'll
Right.
start engaging with them just on a purely like natural manner, I guess, not like
Hmm.
in a
Hmm.
salesy way.
Right.
And if we notice that some influencers are engaging back, they're liking some of the posts, they're following, they're commenting, then we see them as warm leads and we'll reach out to them and offer to send them some product on behalf of the client and with no expectations, like create something if you want, but you don't have to. So,
Mhm.
but often, even though we don't set that expectation,
Mhm.
they want to create some content, so they
I
do,
see.
and then we repost it, and yeah, it's great.
Amazing. Thanks. I think there is a comment from our audience. What I like about Ingrid Deon's approach is that it's personable from
Hmm.
Deb Flanagan.
Yeah, it's very authentic. It's organic, it's authentic, it's
Right.
personable. I that's it, it aligns with my personality and my way of running a business and running my life and also running social media accounts.
Right. Thanks for that comment, Deb. I wanted to ask you the last question within this section, um, is what keeps you awake at night? Like, is there anything that you worry about?
Deadlines and finances.
Deadlines? Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah.
those are hectic.
But I try not to let them keep me awake too much. But yeah, sometimes I do wake up at 2 a.m. and I'll remember a deadline that I was supposed to
Oh,
complete something, or and usually it's not a big thing, like a very minor thing, and it will wake me
right.
up. And, oh darn! Yeah,
And then you go do that, right? Or
yeah.
you, okay, wow,
I
because it's a
make a note of
deadline.
it on my phone really
Yes.
quickly. Yeah, do this
Wow.
in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, let's talk about moving to a next section, which is, um, our listeners and viewers often value the most is your advice for career growth. Those golden nuggets of wisdom, the advice that can really help thrive in your career. We'll hear from you about the essential skills and qualities that are key to success in your field. We'll also explore the power of networking and mentorship. And I do have my share of expertise there of networking,
Mhm.
um, how it impacts your journey, and do you mentor at all? What kind of philosophy do you have behind mentoring? I think our listeners would love to hear your thoughts on this. What are some of the essential skills and traits for success in this field?
I think I have a bit of a unique response, maybe. Whenever I'm hiring people, I will look at their resume,
Hmm.
but that's not the most important thing to me.
Right.
When I get into an interview with someone, I always ask them, and this is something that I learned from one of my previous bosses, tell me about a time when you've struggled. So I'm looking for people to join my team who have struggled,
Hmm.
like I have, being a single mom who was poor and worked 3 jobs. Um, I'm looking for people who have struggled because we work so much harder and we appreciate things more. And yeah, so that's the biggest asset is
Hmm.
struggle. That
Struggle.
it sounds crazy, but that's the biggest asset that I'm looking for. Um, and I think you learn so much from struggle. Um, yeah,
So
I'm
that
sure you.
that's
I'm
one
sure
of
you
the.
agree.
Oh yes, I think most of the folks who are trying to accomplish something in their career goes through the struggle. So we talked about how you built the skill of writing concisely. That's one. And then I shared, how I built the cold calling skill. That's something.
Yeah,
So these are skills and traits that I think more or less a lot of people go through, but without realizing it at first. Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
building something, right?
And we
Um,
often think that struggle is a bad thing, and maybe not
yeah,
something that you want to talk about in a job
exactly.
interview. But it is so important to have lived through something and come out the other side and learn
Mhm.
something and become better for it.
Right, right. And then um, I wanted to touch on the networking part. Um,
Yeah.
what kind of role do you think networking plays in your career progression?
I I think it's super important. I have often struggled to network because I'm an introvert. So if I get into a room full of people, it's very hard for me to just start going up to people and talking to them. However, through years of owning my own business, and being at events and having to talk to people, I've become better at it.
Hmm.
And it's something that I value, and I know it's the best way to meet new people, to tell
Right,
people about what I do, and to learn about what they do and see if I can help them as well as
right.
hopefully getting them to help me. I was just at a conference in Toronto last week, and every time I stood up, I went and sat, if I stood up to get a cup of tea or
Hmm.
to get lunch or whatever, I would sit at a different table every time because I want to try and meet as many new people as I can, even though
And that
it's,
was intentional, right? You used to do that
yes,
intentionally. Wow.
yeah, yeah, even though it would be the easy and comfortable thing to go and sit at the same table with the people that you met in the morning.
Right.
I have to push myself out of that comfort zone and sit with new people just so that I can meet as many people as I can.
And I share the same sentiment because I'm an introvert too.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm doing this, going live, taking in question answer, but it has been a long time passion for me to interview people. I get to learn so many things. Hearing about experience also inspires me personally. I'm sure a lot of people does, but introverts like us, it is pretty hard for someone like us to go up and talk to somebody who has more authority or more senior, like a VP or a CEO, unless you have on-the-job training and it developed. It's really hard for a person who's looking for networking so that he can find a job to go and up and introduce with an elevator pitch, right? So that's something it absolutely keeps me awake at night. How am I going to speak to a CEO tomorrow? What am I going to speak to? I'm going to be too nervous, and all those things come rushing into. But
Yeah.
anyway, I overcame that eventually, just like you did. You honed on, you just used techniques, breathing exercises, all those. And recently, perfect example was recently I went to a forum where I absolutely pushed my limit. I was like, I'm gonna talk to anybody and anyone. I don't
Yeah.
care whether it's a CEO or a VP. So I met at least 15 people. I just kind of thought about a pitch, 20 second, and
Yeah.
that's a hook for a conversation. And after that, I just let it go as naturally. Um,
It's great.
I want
Yeah.
to pivot to mentorship now that we talked about networking, enough of knowing people and getting to learn from them, having, also it has to be meaningful networking. Like you just don't go up there, introduce, and then forget about it. You have to keep in touch, say something meaningful, or at least resonate with the person who are networking. And same thing with mentorship. You know, you have to keep on looking for a mentor. That's what I do. But I wanted to hear, our listeners would like to hear your take on mentorship.
Hmm. I think it's super important. I've had some really great mentors uh, over the years. Um, I'm eager to learn as much as I can because when I started this business, I don't have a background in business. I have a
Right.
background in journalism and social media. So I knew how to do social media really well, but running a business, not so much. So I've tapped into a lot of different people throughout the years to learn as much as I can. There's an organization here in Nova Scotia called the Center for Women in Business, and they offer a lot of programming and mentorship, and they've been instrumental in helping me. I've
Hmm.
taken so many different programs and learned so much from them. And I'm also a member or a connector through our local economic development organization called the Western Wren. So they have a program a connector program where they look for mentors to connect them with newcomers to the area. So
I
I've
see.
been able to mentor a few newcomers, which is a lot of fun,
That's
especially
rewarding too.
yeah, really rewarding and nice to try and guide some people who are just sort of learning, feeling out the area, this area in rural Nova Scotia. They come from around the world
Hmm.
and aren't used to being here and don't really know
Right,
anyone. So I can connect them with different people who might be able to give them some work or some advice
right.
or just build their network.
I see. And I know Nova Scotia, I've never been there, but I heard, it's bilingual, more bilingual than
Yeah,
Toronto at least, right? So there are
yeah,
French-speaking uh, folks there. So there are uh, m different cultural uh, presence, I would say.
for sure. Yeah, yeah, especially with the area that I'm from. My first language is French, and so there's
I
a
see.
lot of uh, a lot of people are bilingual down here.
Nice, nice. Um, Switching gear, I know we are coming to almost end of our show. It's 5 more minutes. Just to make it fun, I wanna um, ask you rapid fire question answers. It'll
Okay,
be
cool.
hopefully uh, so I'll just ask you a question and you answer in short sentence.
Okay,
Are you ready?
yep.
Cool. What's the best career advice you have ever received?
Um, I think the one that gave me the biggest kick in the pants was when someone said to me, I've never seen anyone so reluctant to advance their career in my life. And that was when I didn't want to take the job as manager
Oh,
at the agency where I used to work at.
right.
I was happy just staying in my coordinator bubble and didn't want to be a manager. And so when I was told that I appeared to be very reluctant to advance my career, I think that was the advice that I needed to keep going and
Wow.
advance my career and stop staying in my little bubble of comfort.
Great, great. A book or podcast that influenced your career?
Profit First by Mike McAllowitz. It is how I run all the finances for WordCraft now, and I I recommend that book to everyone.
Amazing. One skill everyone should learn.
Um, I think communication is key. So if you can learn to be a good communicator, communicate
Right.
clearly, like we talked about, being clear and concise
Yep.
is a big skill.
I agree that too. A mistake that taught you the most.
Um, I think early on in my career as a journalist, I did something to uh, make a former editor unhappy
Oh.
and burned a bridge. And I decided at that moment that I would never burn another bridge. And I think this goes
Hmm.
back to the networking, like building
Right.
a network. Um,
Hmm.
if you've had a job in the past, never burn that bridge. As even if you had a bad experience or something, just keep everything positive because you never know when you might be able to use those connections again in the
Right.
future.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Never
will
burn a
never
bridge.
burn a bridge again.
Amazing. Um, so we are near to the closing of our show. Any final thoughts or words of encouragement, Ingrid?
um, I think let's go back to the struggle and yeah, just remember that struggle is not bad. Keep going, keep pushing.
Mhm.
It'll get better. And also people can, even if you've been dealt the worst cards and you're in a bad place,
Mhm.
you can turn it around. You can burn those cards and
Right.
you can start again. You don't have to keep the cards that you've been dealt.
What an amazing advice. Thank you so much, Ingrid. So I just want
Thank
to
you.
wrap up with those, thoughts and advices from Ingrid. Um, Resilience, keep on, doing the struggle. Keep your head high. Don't burn the bridges. Read books, find a mentor. I think those are some amazing takeaway from this episode. So as we wrap up, these are the takeaways that we hopefully our listeners and viewers can utilize in their own life. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Ingrid. Um, if you'd like to, I'm just going to talk to our viewers now. If you'd like to learn
Yeah.
more about today's guest, uh, Ingrid, she's the CEO of WordCraft. Stay connected. Go to our page. I'll be posting this video recording. Obviously, she's on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to her if you need more advice. We're excited to announce that future sessions will dive even deeper into diverse career journeys with professionals across technology, marketing, finance, and beyond, sharing their unique insights and tips. To make sure you don't miss any of these sessions, hit the follow button on LinkedIn and subscribe to our channel. We're on YouTube as well. The handle is at Story Behind a Resume. And for those who prefer listening on the go, our interviews will soon be available as a podcast on both Apple and Google Podcasts. So stay tuned for the official release. It'll come by hopefully by midday tomorrow. And follow us on LinkedIn. It will ensure that you get all the updates. Lastly, if you are a professional interested in sharing your story on Story Behind a Resume here. Would love to hear from you. Simply reach out to me personally directly on LinkedIn, and we can discuss bringing your unique career insights to our audience. Thank you once again for being part of this journey with us. Thank you, Ingrid, and we look forward to inspiring conversation ahead. Stay tuned, stay inspired, and keep exploring the stories that go beyond the resume. Bye.